I pulled into the parking lot thinking I was late. Kristen had made the reservation weeks ago, called it a surprise for our 10-year anniversary. There was another dinner planned with her family for later in the month, but I didn't know about that yet. She picked the place, a high-end steakhouse in downtown Charlotte. I walked in expecting steak and champagne. What I got felt more like an ambush. The hostess smiled too wide and said, "Right this way, Mr. Hale," like she already knew something I didn't. They'd booked a private room, but the doors were open. Easily 30 people inside. Her parents, a few of her co-workers, people I barely recognized from her Pilates group. My gut twisted, but I kept walking. Kristen stood when she saw me, wearing this red dress she hadn't worn in years. Her hair and makeup were done like she was hitting a red carpet. She smiled like nothing was wrong and handed me a glass of beer before picking up her own wine. Then she raised her glass high. "To freedom," she said, grinning wide. "To being single again. To better options." Laughter scattered around the room like someone had dropped plates. A couple people clapped. Her mother looked like she'd just won a poker game. Her dad sat back and chuckled like this was all some inside joke. I just stared at Kristen, my glass froze in midair. The room blurred for a second, like I was under hot lights. She leaned in, smug, and handed me a small box, wrapped in silver paper, still smiling. "Go on," she said. "It's a gift." I opened it, hands stiff. Inside was a black hoodie, folded neatly. On the front in white block letters, 10 years of letdowns. Someone near the back let out a low whistle. Her mom covered her mouth like it was the funniest thing she'd ever seen. I clenched the box tight, my knuckles going white. My whole face burned, but I didn't blink. I scanned the crowd, every single one of them looking at me like I was the punchline to a joke they'd been telling for months. I took a breath, just one, raised my glass, looked Kristen dead in the eye. "To being free, single, and searching," I said, and I made damn sure my voice carried. Then I clinked my glass to hers, set it down hard on the table, and walked out. No pause, no second look. Straight into the cold night air, my hands still shaking. Quick note before we keep going. Share which city or country you're watching from. I didn't go home that night. Drove around for hours, just looping the city in silence with the radio off. I ended up crashing on my buddy Jared's couch. When he asked what happened, I just said, "Anniversary dinner went sideways." But really, that dinner was just the final blow. The cracks had been spreading for a while. Looking back, it's embarrassing how long I ignored it. Kristen had stopped kissing me goodnight months ago. No real conversations, just surface talk. Groceries, appointments, bills. Every time I tried to bring up anything real, she'd zone out. Head buried in her phone. Thumb scrolling like her life depended on it. Always texting someone. Always tired. I stopped asking who. It got to where I couldn't tell if she was annoyed or just bored. Either way, I felt like background noise. Like a plant in the corner. Something she watered once a week just to keep alive. Sundays used to be ours. Brunch, long drives, dumb movies. But then it became self-care day. She started going to this spa place every weekend. Massages, group Pilates, juice cleanses, whatever. I'd be sitting at the kitchen table alone, eating cold eggs while she floated off somewhere else. One Sunday I asked, "Want to do something together this weekend? Just us?" She didn't even look up. Just said, "I already have plans." That was it. No smile, no sorry, no explanation. I remember watching her walk out the door that day in leggings and a hoodie, earbuds in, not a word to me, like I was a tenant who'd overstayed the lease. One night, I caught a different scent on her when she got home. It wasn't her usual stuff. This was heavy, expensive, like the kind of thing you wear when you want to be noticed. I asked, "New perfume?" She didn't miss a beat. "It's for work. They want us to be more polished with clients." Sure, clients. At a fitness center. She never yelled, never slammed doors. She didn't throw anything or insult me. It wasn't loud like in movies. It was quiet. That's what made it worse. She stopped asking about my day, stopped noticing when I shaved, when I started losing weight. I could have been replaced with a coat rack and she wouldn't have blinked. There were nights I'd be sitting right beside her on the couch, and I swear it felt like I was 100 miles away. Her eyes locked on her phone, fingers tapping out someone else's story. One night I said, "Kristen, are we okay?" She looked at me for half a second like I just interrupted a commercial. "What do you mean?" "I mean us. You've been distant." She exhaled through her nose. "I've just been stressed, okay? That was the last time I brought it up. After that, I kept my mouth shut. I went to work, did the dishes, took the trash out, played the part, hoping she'd come back to me, but she never did. She was never cruel. That's the part that gutted me. It wasn't hate, it was indifference. Like everything I did, everything I said, everything I used to be to her, just stopped mattering, and I let it happen. Until that dinner, when I finally saw the full picture. I left Jared's place early the next morning. I needed answers. I walked back into that house like a stranger. Kristen was still asleep upstairs, dead to the world, while I stood in the laundry room staring at a mountain of clothes that somehow still felt like my job. I started folding out of habit. Shirts, socks, leggings, more socks. Then her gym bag flopped over on its side. Something slid out, half stuck to the Velcro edge. I picked it up, figuring it was a receipt or maybe an appointment slip. It wasn't. It was a printed invoice from a local print shop. Bold letters at the top. Custom order. 10 years of letdowns. Sweatshirt delivery date. 3 weeks ago. I just stood there, holding a sock in one hand and that paper in the other, trying to breathe through the sudden tightness in my chest. 10 years of letdowns? That was the joke? That wasn't a last-minute dig. That was planned. She'd ordered it weeks in advance, like it was a gift. I sat down on the basement step. For a minute, I didn't even blink. I looked at the invoice again just to be sure I wasn't losing my mind, but nope. There it was in black and white. Her name, her email, her idea. I felt sick. That night, I waited for her to go to bed. She passed out around 11 like always, face to the wall, back to me. I crept downstairs. Her laptop was open on the coffee table. She'd been watching some yoga tutorial, probably pretending to decompress. I clicked into her messages, no password. I wasn't even trying to be sneaky anymore. I needed to know who I was living with. There was a conversation thread with someone saved as just J. No last name, just a letter. First thing I noticed, the tone, inside jokes, winks, laughing emojis. Nothing professional, nothing friendly, all familiar. And then I saw this message from her. 3 more weeks of playing supportive wife. Then it's curtain call time. I'm so ready. Jay replied, she deserves a standing ovation. I want front row seats. I scrolled back. Photos, screenshots, memes making fun of couples therapy, and one voice memo I couldn't bring myself to play. There it was, all of it. She wasn't just checked out. She was scripting my public execution. I felt the heat rising in my face, but not the kind that explodes. This was colder, focused. Everything I hadn't let myself believe was now laid out right there in her goddamn text bubbles. The hoodie wasn't a joke between her and her friends. It was part of a reveal. This dinner she was planning, our 10-year anniversary, it wasn't meant to celebrate us. It was meant to bury me. I backed out of the chat, closed the laptop. My hand was shaking, but I kept breathing slow. She'd been playing the long game. She wanted control of the ending. I decided right then, if she was planning a show, I'd be the one to rewrite the script. I barely slept after reading those messages, just laid there in the dark, staring at the ceiling like it owed me an answer. The next morning, I sent Kristen a text saying I had to go into work early. She didn't ask questions, just hit me back with a thumbs up. I drove straight to the strip mall where her company's office was. Not to see her, but Dan. He'd worked with Kristen for years, same department. We'd had beers a few times, used to talk football. He was walking out with his coffee when I pulled up. Yo, Dan, I said, rolling down the window. Got a sec? He looked surprised. Hey man, what's up? I kept it casual. Kristen been working late a lot lately? She's been saying she's slammed. Dan's eyebrows bunched up. Late? Nah. She hasn't been in much, actually. I thought she was taking some personal time. Really? I kept my voice flat. Yeah, he said. I figured you two were on vacation or something. That was all I needed. I gave a tight nod. Appreciate it, man. I drove off, hands gripping the wheel so hard it hurt. That night, I pulled out our credit card statements. I hadn't looked closely in months. She handled the bills. My name was still on them, though. Line after line of charges, upscale restaurants, spa appointments. One boutique hotel showed up 4 times in the last 6 weeks. All local, all booked on weeknights. She wasn't even trying to cover her tracks. One receipt had 2 entrees and 2 glasses of wine. I'd never set foot in that place. The next day, I made a burner email and created a fake profile for her fitness group's online calendar. Took less than 10 minutes to find their group schedule. There he was, Jonah. He ran a supplement business and hosted these elite challenge classes twice a week. Tall guy, tan, square jaw, always in a sleeveless shirt. The kind of guy who talks over other people and flexes when he laughs. I recognized him from one of Kristen's tagged photos on Instagram. She'd cropped me out. I called his business line, pretending to be a new client. Got his full name from the voicemail, Jonah Marks. I started a file, name, dates, photos, places. I screenshotted everything. I printed the hotel confirmations and stapled them to the receipts. I made a spreadsheet, not because I wanted revenge, not even because I was heartbroken anymore. I just needed facts, evidence, something solid. The rage didn't come loud. It came cold, organized, focused. She wanted a dramatic exit. I was going to give her something better, a record. Once I had Jonah's name, everything started connecting faster than I could process. Her parents had always treated me like I'd borrowed their daughter instead of married her. Her mom's favorite move was the half smile and the backhanded compliment. You're lucky Kristen keeps things so organized. Not every man could handle her level of drive. Her dad didn't even bother hiding his smirk when I'd talk about work. He made more money, so in his mind, that meant he made more sense. Now, it all started to feel deliberate. I called Kristen's cousin Eric one night. He was the only one in that family who had ever been remotely decent to me. We used to chat about football at Thanksgiving, while everyone else gossiped about careers and investments. When he picked up, he sounded cautious. "Hey man, everything okay?" "Not really," I said. "I just need to ask you something straight up. Is there something going on with Kristen?" Silence stretched on the line for a few seconds. I could almost hear him deciding how much to say. "You didn't hear it from me," he finally said, "but your name's been coming up, a lot." "In what way?" He sighed. "They've been saying Kristen deserves better. Her mom's been calling Jonah a real go-getter." I froze. "Jonah? You mean the fitness guy?" "Yeah, he's been around lately. Not at parties, but the lake house, dinners. He's tight with her dad now." That last part hit like a gut punch. Her dad. The man who gave me a lecture about loyalty the night before our wedding. Eric kept talking. "They're not even subtle about it. I don't think Kristen's hiding him anymore." I gripped the phone harder. "So they all know? Look, man, I shouldn't even be telling you this. But yeah, they know. They just..." He hesitated. "They think you'll take it quietly." I didn't say anything. My jaw locked and my chest burned like I'd swallowed something sharp. He cleared his throat. "You should talk to someone. A lawyer, maybe." "Yeah," I said. "That's exactly what I'm gonna do." I hung up before he could say another word. That night, I couldn't sit still. I walked the living room floor until the sun came up. Every memory started twisting in my head. Her mom's smirks, her dad's fake compliments, Kristen's blank stares. This wasn't just infidelity, it was strategy. A family campaign to erase me like I was an entry on a spreadsheet. By mid-morning, I'd made an appointment with a divorce attorney downtown. The kind of woman who looked like she'd seen 100 wars and won most of them. She slid her glasses down as I told her everything. The messages, the receipts, the invoice, the family involvement. When I finished, she leaned back in her chair. "You need to protect yourself immediately," she said. "Lock down every account that's in your name. Cancel anything joint that can be drained." If she's been planning this long, she's already several steps ahead. I nodded slowly, the weight of it all pressing in. She pushed a legal pad across the desk. "Start a file. Keep every piece of proof. And don't confront her yet. Not until you're covered. Once people like that sense you're aware, they'll move faster." I took the pen and wrote down everything she said, every step, every warning. When I stood up to leave, she added one last thing. "Get your finances locked down now." That word, now, rang in my head all the way to the parking lot. By the time I started the car, I'd already decided. I wasn't just surviving this. I was going to flip the whole damn table. I drove straight home from the lawyer's office, parked a few houses down, and sat in the car with the engine running. No music, no movement, just planning. If Kristen wanted to run this like a business, then I'd treat it like a hostile takeover. I logged into our joint bank accounts the second I walked through the door. She was at one of her Pilates things, so I had a small window. First thing I noticed, money missing, not huge chunks, but steady ones. 1,000 here, 1,500 there. Over the past 3 months, she'd siphoned off close to 20 grand, always labeled something vague. Investment, reallocation, growth fund. I called our financial advisor pretending to ask about future contributions. His name was Greg. He sounded nervous from the moment he picked up. "Hey Greg," I said. "Quick thing. Kristen said we were shifting some assets around." He paused. Too long? Yes, he said slowly. "She mentioned a surprise investment she was planning. I assumed it was something you two discussed privately." "She say where it was going?" Another pause. "An account in her name. A short-term strategy. That's all I know, officially." His tone made it clear. He knew she was hiding something, but he wasn't about to get in the middle of it. I hung up and opened a brand new personal checking account that same day. No shared access, just mine. Transferred what I could from my side gigs and freelance checks, maybe 5 grand total. It wasn't much, but it bought me breathing room. Back at the house, I went into full lockdown mode. Every file cabinet, every drawer, every folder, mine now. I copied mortgage statements, insurance forms, car titles, credit cards, took pictures, scanned and backed up everything. I wanted a paper trail that stretched from our first apartment to her last lie. Then I found it on her desktop. A spreadsheet labeled Life Reset Plan. Inside, projected dates, moving expenses, a new gym membership, estimated legal fees. One tab actually said Separation Strategy. It hit me harder than the texts. This wasn't about emotion. She wasn't torn or conflicted. She was just executing, like I was a contract she was phasing out. She had a column for anticipated confrontation and a checklist of ways to maintain narrative control. I wasn't even a person to her anymore, just a variable she needed to manage. I didn't cry, didn't yell. I got to work, started a secure folder online, uploaded every file, every photo, every receipt, labeled and dated, built a timeline, called the lawyer and scheduled another meeting. "Bring everything," she said. "The more we have, the cleaner this goes." That night, I sat at the kitchen table while Kristen breezed in from wherever the hell she'd been, talking about how her Pilates instructor was such a visionary. I just nodded. She had no idea I already knew. She had no idea I'd already fired the first shot. Kristen was upstairs, blasting some podcast about manifesting power while she folded yoga pants. I was in the garage pretending to look for a wrench. In reality, I was pulling up Facebook. I remembered something she said once, years ago. Half-brother, Matt. Never visited, never called. Her dad referred to him as the black sheep at some barbecue, and Kristen just rolled her eyes like he didn't exist. I found him in 5 minutes. Matt Parks, lives 2 towns over, works at an auto shop. His profile picture was just him and a mutt of a dog in front of a lifted pickup. Not a single photo with Kristen. I figured what the hell, sent him a message. Didn't expect much. 10 minutes later, he replied, "You must be Kristen's husband. We should talk." That was all he wrote. I sent back a time and place. Small dive bar off Route 64. The kind with neon beer signs, peanut shells on the floor, and nobody asking questions. He walked in already looking like he didn't care what anyone thought. Greasy hands, denim jacket, beard halfway grown in, no small talk. He sat down, ordered a whiskey, then looked at me straight on. "So," he said, "they're doing it again." I blinked. "What do you mean again?" He shook his head, took a sip. "They script everything. Lives, careers, relationships. You're either playing the role they want, or you're disposable." I leaned forward. "Kristen's in on it. She's not evil," he said, "but she's part of the machine. Has been since she was 12. They programmed her to play along and punish anyone who doesn't." I stared at him. "You're saying this has happened before?" He let out a short laugh. "They cut me off when I was 23. Your father-in-law wanted me to sign on to a real estate deal. Shady numbers, tax stuff that didn't smell right. I walked. They erased me. Lost access to the family account. Lost invites. Suddenly I was unstable." He looked me dead in the eye. "I'm guessing they've been pushing you out for a while now, quietly, making you look like the problem." I nodded. "They've got Kristen cozying up to a guy named Jonah. He's been around, a lot." Matt didn't flinch. "Let me guess, her dad's already met him, called him driven, called you, what? Too nice? Too average?" My jaw clenched. He nailed it. He downed the last of his drink. "You're not the first they've done this to. You won't be the last." I rubbed my temples. "You got any proof of any of this?" He pulled out his phone, thumbed through a folder, and showed me a series of old voice memos. One of them was her dad, mid-conversation, saying, "If we're gonna dump him, we do it before the holidays. Easier that way." I stared at the screen. Matt tucked the phone away. "You want more of that? I can help. But only if you're serious." I looked him in the eye. "I'm all in." He nodded once. "Then let's break their script." Matt and I walked out of that bar like two guys headed into a war room, not a parking lot. On the drive back, he laid it all out. Dates, recordings, connections I hadn't even considered. "This goes deeper than Kristen cheating," he said. "This was organized. The plan wasn't just to leave you, it was to bury you." I believed him. By the end of that week, I had my own war file. I logged every instance of financial manipulation, money transferred behind my back, her secret spreadsheet, even the suspicious charges tied to Jonah. I labeled it all. Red tabs for finances, yellow for text messages, green for voice memos. Matt dropped off a flash drive. "This one's gold," he said. "I was wired for a lawsuit against a former business partner a few years ago. Your father-in-law forgot." He wasn't kidding. One clip had her dad laughing on the phone. "If we're gonna dump him, we do it before the holidays. Hit him while he's still trying to smile for pictures." Cold, calculated. Like I was a headline he wanted to spin. I started moving my things into storage, bit by bit. Tools, clothes, books. I made sure Kristen didn't notice. She was always out networking on Sundays anyway. That final Sunday, I woke up before sunrise, packed what was left. I only left behind the furniture she brought into the marriage. Cheap modern stuff that looked good in Instagram photos, but had no soul. By the time she walked in from brunch, the house was empty. My key sat on the counter with a post-it that said, "Don't bother calling." I had already signed the lease on a small one-bedroom across town. Hardwood floors, second floor, no frills, just clean, quiet, mine. I blocked her family on every platform, deleted old posts, scrubbed my accounts, went dark. The second lawyer I met specialized in high-conflict divorce. She didn't flinch when I told her everything. When I mentioned the audio, she leaned forward. "You want to stay reactive or go on offense?" I smiled. "Let's go on offense." She gave me a checklist, legal notification steps, asset protection, public documentation. I followed everyone. Then I sat down at my desk and wrote a one-page letter. Straight facts. No insults, no emotion. Just bulletproof truth. Kristen had been in a long-term affair with a man named Jonah Marks. She'd moved marital funds without consent. Her father and mother were aware and involved. I had proof. Financial records, screenshots, and audio recordings. I signed it, sealed it, made 5 copies, sent one to Kristen's employer, one to her gym, one to each parent, one to her closest friend group, mail, not email, certified, no drama, no big scene, just the facts landing like quiet bombs in every corner of her life. I didn't answer my phone that week, didn't open messages, didn't need to. The silence on their end told me they knew I'd flipped the script. 3 weeks passed after the first dinner. I watched the calendar like a sniper tracking a target. The dinner was still happening, same steakhouse, same date Kristen picked. She must have assumed I'd be too humiliated to show my face after walking out last time. That was her mistake. I showed up 10 minutes early, gray suit, black tie, clean shave, calm. I looked like the version of me she tried to erase. Only sharper. Heads turned when I walked in. A few fake smiles, a few raised brows. Her friends did that thing where they half wave but don't make eye contact, like they weren't sure what role I was playing yet. Kristen stood near the head of the table, wine glass in hand, mid-laugh. She spotted me and her face froze, just for a second. Enough for me to clock it. Her parents were behind her. Her mom's eyes narrowed. Her dad tilted his head, fake polite like always. I took the empty seat across from Kristen, didn't say a word, just nodded once and poured myself a glass of water. She stared at me like I was a ghost. When the server brought the appetizers, she tried to recover. "I wasn't sure if you'd be joining us," she said, voice light but tight at the edges. I smiled just enough to keep it civil. "Wouldn't miss it?" She lifted her glass again. "To new beginnings." I raised mine and stood. "Let's all toast to honesty." The table went dead quiet. I set my glass down gently, then reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out the first manila envelope, walked it over, and laid it in front of her plate. "You're going to want to read that before dessert." She didn't move. I turned, walked around the table, and dropped a second envelope in front of her dad. He smirked like he didn't care, until he saw his name on the label. Inside Kristen's envelope, bank records, credit card statements, lawyer correspondence, and every text between her and Jonah I had printed and time-stamped. Inside, her dad's, the audio file Matt gave me, his voice talking about dumping me before the holidays, followed by Matt's notarized affidavit confirming how and when it was recorded. I sat back down. Nobody said a word. Her mom had gone pale. Her dad slowly closed the envelope like it was burning his hands. Kristen still hadn't opened hers. She just stared at it like if she didn't look inside, none of it would be real. The silence stretched. Finally, Kristen spoke. "You really think this little stunt's going to fix anything?" I didn't flinch. "It's not about fixing anything. It's about making sure we all understand what this is." Her friend across the table shifted uncomfortably. One of the women who used to give me hugs at cookouts suddenly looked like she couldn't remember my name. I stood up, buttoned my jacket, and tossed a $100 bill on the table. "Dinner's on me." I didn't wait for a response. I walked out of that restaurant the same way I walked in. Steady, clean, in control. And behind me, the whole illusion started to crack. I walked out of that steakhouse before dessert, calm and steady. The cold night hit my face like a reset button. Clean air. No noise behind me, just forward. Matt was waiting in his pickup by the curb, engine running, window down. He smirked when he saw me. "You good?" I nodded, climbed into the passenger seat. Better than I've been in years. He didn't ask for details, didn't need to. He threw the truck in gear, and we drove off without looking back. That night, I slept in my own bed, my own place. No lies humming in the background. No fake smiles or quiet judgment at the dinner table. Just silence. It was perfect. The fallout started slow. First, a few messages trickled in from Kristen's friends, the ones who'd clapped at that first dinner. Confused texts, then apologies. One of them even said, "If I had known what she was planning, too late." By the second week, Kristen's gym quietly removed Jonah from their website. His little supplement company dropped a sponsorship deal. I didn't have to say a word. People talk. Evidence circulates, especially when you mail it. Her parents tried to spin it, of course. That tight little circle of power they built, cracking. Her dad called Matt twice. Never got a call back. Her mom tried to send me some handwritten letter. I didn't open it. Straight to trash. I didn't gloat, didn't respond. Just lived. I worked, ate what I wanted, watched whatever the hell I felt like. I went to sleep without bracing for a cold shoulder. Later that year, I met someone. Not serious. Just coffee, conversation, lightness, no tension. No games. Just nice. But even now, every once in a while, I think back to that dinner table, the second one. Kristen's face when I slid that envelope across the linen, the tightness in her jaw, the fear crawling up behind her eyes. The moment the mask cracked, and she knew she lost the script. She thought she was staging my public humiliation.